On the northern coast of South America sits a country that often surprises people before they learn anything else about it. Guyana is geographically South American, culturally tied to the Caribbean, officially English-speaking, and now suddenly central to the future of global oil. It is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean to the north, Suriname to the east, Brazil to the south and southwest, and Venezuela to the west. Its capital and largest city is Georgetown, a coastal city that reflects the country's colonial history, Caribbean connections, and role as a political and commercial hub. Guyana is not a large country by South American standards, and it is one of the least densely populated countries on Earth. Yet its significance has grown rapidly because of offshore oil discoveries, its enormous natural ecosystems, and its unusual identity at the meeting point of South America, the Caribbean, and the Amazonian world. Guyana's geography helps explain why it feels different from many of its neighbors. It covers about 214,969 square kilometers, making it the third smallest sovereign state by area on mainland South America, after Uruguay and Suriname. But unlike compact coastal countries, much of Guyana's land is forested, river-filled, and sparsely inhabited. The majority of the population lives along the Atlantic coastal plain, where Georgetown and other settlements developed near plantations, ports, and administrative centers. Inland, the landscape changes dramatically into savannas, highlands, dense rainforest, and river systems. This uneven settlement pattern means Guyana can feel both small and vast at the same time, small in population, but immense in ecological scale. The country's geography has shaped its economy, its infrastructure challenges, its cultural development, and even its politics. Guyana belongs to a wider region known as the Guyanas, a shield landmass north of the Amazon River and east of the Orinoco River. The region has long been described as the land of many waters, and that phrase fits Guyana well. Rivers cut deep into the interior, connecting communities but also making roads and nationwide infrastructure difficult to build. This watery geography influenced how indigenous peoples lived, how European powers colonized the coast, and how the modern state still manages transportation, trade, and resource access. Guyana is also home to part of the Amazon rainforest system, one of the most biodiverse environments on the planet. The country's forests, wetlands, mountains, and savannas make it ecologically important far beyond its borders, especially in an era when rainforest conservation and climate change are global concerns. Long before European colonization, Guyana was home to indigenous peoples with distinct languages, territories, and cultures. Today, 9 indigenous tribes are recognized in Guyana: the Wai-Wai, Makushi, Patamona, Lakono, Kalina, Wapishana, Pemen, Akaweo, and Wereo. Historically, the Lakono and Kalina were especially influential in the region. These communities developed deep knowledge of the land, rivers, forests, and seasonal cycles. Their presence is not just a historical footnote. Indigenous communities remain part of Guyana's national identity and political life. Their territories often overlap with some of the country's most biodiverse and resource-rich areas, placing them at the center of debates over conservation, mining, land rights, and development. Understanding Guyana means recognizing that its story began long before plantations, colonial borders, or oil companies arrived. European colonization transformed Guyana's society and economy. The Dutch were among the early colonial powers in the region, establishing settlements and plantation systems along the coast. By the late 18th century, British influence increased, and the territory eventually became British Guiana. Under British rule, the economy was heavily shaped by plantations, especially sugar, and by the labor systems that supported them. Enslaved Africans were forced to work on plantations, and after emancipation, indentured laborers from India were brought in to sustain the plantation economy. Over time, this produced one of Guyana's defining features: a highly diverse population with African, Indian, Indigenous, Chinese, Portuguese, European, and multiracial communities. The country's modern culture, politics, food, religion, and social life all carry the imprint of this complex colonial and migration history. Guyana's official language is English, making it the only country on mainland South America with English as its official language. This is one of the clearest legacies of British colonial rule, but the language situation is more layered than that single fact suggests. Many people speak Guyanese Creole, an English-based Creole that carries local rhythm, vocabulary, and cultural expression. Parts of the population are also bilingual in English and indigenous languages. Language connects Guyana to the wider English-speaking Caribbean, even though the country is physically attached to South America. It also affects education, government, law, media, and diplomacy. While Spanish and Portuguese dominate much of the continent around it, Guyana's English-speaking identity has given it a distinct regional role and a different set of cultural and political relationships. Guyana is often described as part of the mainland Caribbean. That may sound contradictory at first, because it is located in South America, not on an island chain. But the label makes sense when looking at history and culture. Guyana was governed as British Guiana and formed part of the British West Indies world. Its political institutions, legal traditions, education systems, sports culture, and social ties were shaped by British Caribbean networks. Today, Guyana is part of the Commonwealth Caribbean and hosts the headquarters of the Caribbean Community, known as CARICOM. This gives the country an important diplomatic role among Caribbean states. It is also a founding member of the Union of South American Nations, reflecting its dual position. Guyana is South American by geography, Caribbean by much of its historical and cultural orientation, and increasingly global through energy markets. The path from colony to republic came in stages. Guyana gained independence from Britain in 1966, becoming a sovereign state after centuries of European rule. In 1970, it officially became a republic within the Commonwealth of Nations. Independence did not erase the colonial legacy, it left behind institutions, ethnic divisions shaped by plantation history, and an economy that had long depended on a narrow range of exports. Like many post-colonial states, Guyana faced the challenge of building national unity among diverse communities while also expanding opportunity beyond inherited structures. Its political administration, official language, and social makeup all reflect this transition. The country had to define itself not simply as a former colony, but as a nation with indigenous roots, Caribbean ties, South American territory, and a population formed by multiple histories of migration and labor. For much of its modern history, Guyana faced serious economic challenges. Despite its natural resources, many citizens struggled with poverty, limited infrastructure, and uneven access to opportunity. In 2017, about 41% of the population lived below the poverty line. This figure is important because it provides context for the oil boom that followed. Guyana was not already a wealthy country that simply became richer, it was a country where large numbers of people still faced hardship. Rural and interior communities could be especially disconnected from services and markets, while coastal communities faced their own pressures, including flooding risks and urban inequality. Any discussion of Guyana's new wealth has to begin with this reality. Economic growth on paper does not automatically translate into improved living standards for everyone. The turning point came offshore. In 2015, major crude oil discoveries were made off Guyana's coast, and commercial drilling began in 2019. Since 2017, more than 11 billion barrels of oil reserves have been found in Guyanese waters, described as the largest addition to global oil reserves since the 1970s. Almost overnight, Guyana moved from the margins of the global energy conversation to the center of a major petroleum story. In 2020, its economy grew by around 49%, making it, by some accounts, the fastest-growing economy in the world at that moment. The country is now expected to become one of the world's largest per capita oil producers. For a small population, this creates the possibility of enormous revenue per person, but also an equally enormous test of governance. Oil can transform a country, but not always in the way people expect. The promise is obvious: more government revenue, better infrastructure, stronger public services, job creation, and a higher standard of living. Guyana's GDP per capita has already risen sharply, and it is now ranked among the highest in the Americas, behind countries such as the United States, Canada, and the Bahamas. But GDP per capita can hide inequality if wealth is concentrated or if benefits arrive slowly for ordinary citizens. The World Bank has warned that abject poverty still exists and that Guyana faces significant risks in structurally managing its growth. That means the challenge is not just extracting oil. It is building institutions capable of saving, investing, regulating, and distributing wealth in a way that outlasts the boom. Guyana's future will depend on how it balances three powerful forces: natural wealth, social development, and environmental protection. The country contains rainforest and biodiversity of global importance, while also holding offshore resources that can generate historic revenue. It has a diverse population shaped by indigenous presence, African and Indian heritage, European colonial rule, and Caribbean connections. It is small in population but increasingly important in energy markets. The central question is whether Guyana can convert rapid growth into long-term national resilience. That means reducing poverty, protecting communities, strengthening governance, investing in education and infrastructure, and preserving the ecosystems that make the country unique. Guyana is not simply an oil story. It is a story about identity, geography, history, and the difficult choices that come when a small nation suddenly becomes a major player. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.